apostles.
Yeah, so imagine what it would be like working with 12 of your closest friends every single day. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to do that.
Oh, hands would be thrown.
Yeah, you drive each other crazy. Yeah, I think you'd really still be friends by the end of that.
There might be some corpses by the end. There might be. Greetings and welcome to another episode of Catholicism and Coffee. I'm Stephen Gasinski.
I'm Beth Kaczynski.
Yes, she's joining me again. I don't think we're gonna be rid of her. And would we want to? No. She adds a lot of appeal and wisdom to the show that I frankly am lacking because I'm not equipped to do so.
Well, I'm glad that you appreciate having me around still.
We talk about Catholicism, all things Catholic, saints, feast days and such, and enjoy some great brews. Well, today we're going to be talking about the apostles, the original 12. We might jump into a little bit about the improved apostles.
The improved apostles.
Yeah, I like to call it Apostles 2.0.
Apostles 2.0.
So,
AKA the early church.
AKA the early church. So, you're probably like, I'm sick of hearing about apostles. Who the heck were these guys? Well, the original apostles, the original 12, were men Jesus recruited or called to serve in ministry. They were his closest followers and eventual successors after he returned via the ascension to heaven. And they continued his mission.
And they were chosen very specifically to carry out this mission. And probably a pretty big deal considering they still have successors today.
Yes, the priests and bishops of today, if they are faithful to the mission, they are the apostles' successors.
Yes.
So treat them accordingly. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. So, do any of the apostles stand out to you?
Oh, there are a few. The interesting thing is, throughout the Gospels, a few names were changed.
Yes.
There isn't a consistency, so it may have been middle names or given or nicknames or whatever, because we had like Nathaniel and Jude and Bartholomew. So there was a little bit of confusion, but there are a few who were very consistent.
Yes, and there's some who are mentioned a lot more than others, because I think there's a few, you see them in the passage or the verse that names the 12, and then you don't really see that specific name again.
Mm-hmm. So here's one who definitely stands out, and should for us Catholics especially. Peter, also known as Simon, son of Jonah. Peter meant rock, and Jesus would say, he was also called Peter. Upon this rock I will build my church. Now, why is he important to us Catholics? He is the first pope. He was given the keys to the kingdom by Jesus himself. Now, he's also gotten himself in trouble a few times, but he was a very close follower of Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Again, not surprising considering he's the first pope.
Yeah, and despite his imperfections, he did have a really great faith.
He did. He was the first to actually identify who Jesus was as the Messiah.
Yeah,
Who do
the
you
others
say
were
that?
talking about, some say you're Elijah, some say you're John the Baptist.
And then, or one of the old prophets, and he's like, okay, who do you say that I am? And Peter stepped out and says, you are the Christ, the Son of God, the Messiah.
And then Jesus decides, I like you, I'm changing your name.
Basically.
Simon's a stupid name, we already have one.
We already have Simon. So, that's just confusing. And also, although he did yell at him later, get behind me, Satan.
Yeah, but did Peter deserve it?
He was not thinking as God does, but as human beings do.
Yes.
So, also another time there were a couple of times he stepped in it. Another one was wanting to build tents at the Transfiguration. He didn't want to come down from the mountain. And, I mean, can you blame him? You got three of the greatest people of faith right there in front of you. I wouldn't want to leave either. And then also, He denied Jesus at the crucifixion 3 times. Fortunately, Jesus and he kind of worked together to undo that. That's for another episode.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because we see Peter's faith prior to the resurrection at the Last Supper. He says, even if I would have to die with you, I would not deny you.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't just say, oh, it's scary, I'm just going to go home, I'm not going to deny you. It's just like, no, I want to die with you. But then, when faced with that reality, he got scared because the man was only human.
Yeah, he faltered a little bit. But, gotta give him props, he finished strong.
He did.
He ended up being martyred. He was crucified upside down, which is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, crucifixion itself is disturbing.
But being upside down to do it, eek.
I mean, I guess you'd get it over with faster.
I suppose so. So, who are some of the other apostles? Who are some notable ones?
Well, one who I am very interested in is John. And there's a lot, yet also very little known about him. So, he is the one who was with Jesus until his death. Jesus appointed John to take Mary into his home after he died.
So that shoots the whole Jesus having siblings, that theory, out of the water.
Otherwise,
that's a whole other episode.
Well, I asked John, and he was with Jesus for so much. Like, he was there at the Transfiguration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just, the fact that he was the only of the 12 there at the cross with Jesus, I'm like, I want to meet him and find out what was that like. Because he was pretty alone. Imagine your teacher, your leader is being punished and killed, and you're standing there with his mother, and all of your other friends have deserted you. And also, scholars believe that John was the youngest of the apostles. So it's like, he had to be very courageous. Courageous baby boy.
Interestingly enough, he was the only one who wasn't martyred.
Yes, that's also interesting. And he lived a long time, and there's theories that he is the author of the Gospel of John and the letters of John.
And the writer of Revelation.
Yes, and the writer of Revelation. I knew I was missing one.
Yeah. Yeah, interestingly enough, he was boiled, and they were trying to kill him at and then, well, that didn't work, so they sent him to Patmos, basically in exile, and then he eventually returned to Ephesus and died there. Yeah. That's what is believed. We're not quite sure.
Because record keeping wasn't the greatest back then.
No.
Yeah, and with John, you have his big brother James, who was also present for a lot. Another one of the sons of Zebedee. Yeah, and not as much is said about James compared to John, but we do know that he was the first of the apostles to be martyred.
Yep. He was beheaded. And he was probably one of the first to be called. We don't know who was the exact first, but he was up there.
Yeah, but we see Jesus with the sons of Jonah and the sons of Zebedee very, very early on, because the whole, come after me and I'll make you fishers of men.
Yeah.
Or come follow me.
So sons of Jonah. So Peter wasn't alone as being a son of Jonah.
No, he had a little brother. So if you're the second child, you're in good company. You got Andrew and John. So, yeah, not much is said about Andrew. He didn't hang out with Peter and the sons of Zebedee as much. At least there's no account of him. Maybe he was tagging along and hiding, hanging back. We don't know.
Yeah.
But he also was martyred, and not in a very pretty way.
No, crucified on an X-shaped cross.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, but again, among the first to be called.
So, some others. We've got Thomas.
Somebody around here is a fan of Thomas.
He gets such a bad rap for supposedly doubting. But could you imagine what the mindset was at the time? Oh, people are like, oh, he's alive. It's like, no, I just saw him I just know he was martyred. He was murdered. So I'm not too thrilled on it. And funny enough, in the earlier Gospels, the people are like, oh, he's such a doubter. He's asking questions. Come on. You're dealing with something that is way outside your level of comprehension. Aren't you going to ask questions? I mean, I would. So I think Thomas gets a bad rap. But he also was murdered. He was stabbed to death. So he also finished strong.
Yeah.
So we got A couple of more impressive ones. We got Matthew, who also went by the name Levi in another gospel.
Yeah, I think that was more his like family name than his like personal name.
Yeah, his given name.
Yes.
So, what we know, he was a tax collector. He is credited as the author of the Gospel of Matthew. We're not quite sure. But he wrote a lot of important events down and was considered one of the first Gospels, wasn't he?
This was the second. Mark's came first.
Okay,
But
so
Matthew's was placed first, so this was a pretty good gospel.
Yeah. It sets things up.
Yeah,
And
it is a good gospel. I enjoy the Gospel of Matthew.
now, his death is interesting because they're not sure if he was martyred or not, but he was believed to have died while offering Mass, so there are worse ways to go. Okay, shall we talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, may as well.
Judas Iscariot. He was believed to be one of the last of the apostles to be called. He was the treasurer of the group, and it turned out he was also a thief because he was stealing from the treasury. So, not fun.
Nope.
The betrayer of Jesus,
Yes.
so people referring to them as Judases, that's why.
Yeah, and he was the first to die, but he was not martyred.
No, he committed suicide. He hung
Yes.
himself because he realized how badly he dropped the ball.
Yeah, and at least he realized, hey, I did something that was not good, but maybe not worth killing yourself over.
And he tried to return the money that he was given,
Yeah.
and they didn't want it, so he flung it at the Pharisees. So, I mean, he tried.
And it's interesting that in the Gospels, we don't hear many good things about Judas, but we have to assume, okay, he had to have had at least some good points, otherwise Jesus wouldn't have called him.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, he really messed up at the end, but those other years when he was following Jesus early on, I mean, he was still going out with the rest of the apostles to spread the gospel, well,
Yeah.
not the gospel at the time,
But the
good news.
The good news, yeah.
Yes.
So there's that question.
Yes.
Now, there weren't just the 11 the whole time even after Jesus' resurrection. He was replaced by Saint Matthias, who was martyred. So there's some. So all was not lost with Judas. Thankfully, he was replaced.
Yeah, and that's because the reigning apostles understood and just realized, oh, we've always had 12. We need to continue to have 12. 12 is an important number in the Bible.
Yeah.
Just get the 12 tribes of Israel.
Mm-hmm. So who knows? Maybe they were wanting to have 12 people to go to each individual tribe, and maybe they each represented 12 different tribes. Who knows? So that's the apostles.
Yep. And in brief, because there's, let's see, 5 we missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a few others that we don't have a lot of
Yeah,
information
'cause there's James the Lesser,
on. Yeah.
Simon the Zealot,
Mm-hmm. Philip.
Philip, yes. And then the two whose names fluctuate.
Yeah. So there's that question of, okay, how involved are they? And they must have been. There's only so much you can write down.
Yeah.
If you're telling it from a certain perspective. So.
Yeah, but while he was alive and doing his mission on earth, Jesus entrusted these 12 men to go and share it with everybody else. So they must have had a good understanding. They must have known who Jesus was, because you can't teach what you don't know.
No, absolutely not. So this was a little bit of a heavier episode. Don't worry, I'm not obsessed with death. I just like finding these fun facts. So, in the meantime, read up on the apostles. You go through the Gospels and the Acts of the apostles with a fine-tooth comb. Now, Paul refers to himself as an apostle of Christ, which he is. But he's not one of the original 12, so that's why we didn't discuss him in this episode. Paul, we could go into an episode on Paul.
He was part of the apostolic succession.
Yes, he was the next group.
Yes.
Which we have all kinds of interesting folks in that group as well.
And
we discussed
they
some
obviously
of them.
didn't keep the number 12.
No.
Because they needed more and more people as their mission and their cause, as you could call it, grew.
Yeah. So 12 people wouldn't have cut it.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, imagine trying to have the church today with only 12 priests.
No. In the meantime, so continue, like, comment, subscribe to our videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that way when we drop a new video you can know about it and watch it. Thank you to all of you who've been supporting us so far. Big shout out to you. Continue praying for us as we continue this ministry. We pray for you every night. Also, check out our website. We have the link to that in the description of this video. We have our Zazzle shop in there. We have all kinds of stuff in there.
The books we've written, and we're going to have some new ones coming out very soon. And these aren't our usual books. Instead, they're going to be journals.
Yes, with some promptings from the saints.
Yes.
And some promptings from us. We're not saints,
Yes,
but we're kind of going on. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're going to help use their quotes to kind of help prompt you to, journal, pray, stuff like that, just to help you along. We hope it will be a good aid for you. It was a good aid for us.
Yes, and definitely something we enjoy writing.
We usually enjoy writing.
We do.
Even though it can be a little exhausting at times.
Writing's not exhausting, editing is.
Yeah, that's accurate. If you're wanting to show off your love for a certain saint, check out our friends at Sock Religious. They have all kinds of great stuff. We have the Keys to the Kingdom, which I mentioned for Peter earlier. I actually have a pair of those myself. And some other saints. I don't think they're going to have a Judas in there. What would you design for Judas? I don't know.
Money bags.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And or a tree, if you're really grim.
You'd design a tree.
I would assign a tree. In the meantime, people, be brave, be courageous, drink your beverage of choice. Not to excess, but enjoy your beverage of choice. God bless.
God bless.